What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for a UFC fight night happening in Singapore this weekend. Now, this is going to be a really early card, especially for the West Coast in the United States. Around the Midwest to East Coast, it's going to be around 8 o'clock for the main card, that is. So I expect a lot of people missing the prelims, if anything. When we actually look at this card, for the caliber it is on paper, it's actually not a bad card. There's a lot of fun fights. A lot of fighters people just don't know about. So I'm going to start with Felipe Arantes versus Song Yadong. Now, this is a very interesting fight, and I'm not going to lie, it's mainly because of Song Yadong. This guy's a prospect. He's 20 years old, promising fighter from China, and he's fighting a grizzled vet in Arantes. I mean, this guy's been around for a long time. I think he's been in the UFC since 2011, and he's just been exchanging losses and wins. He's just a journeyman in the UFC. And this is a very good fight for Yadong to take. Now, we actually look at this fight. Arantes is a bit of a slow-paced fighter. He's well-rounded. He's good on the ground. He's good on the feet. He's fundamentally sound, but he's just not dynamic anywhere, right? He doesn't commit with things, and he's not that explosive like Yadong is, you know? And he fights in a very singular pattern. Everything's thrown singularly, you know? Everything's just one strike, waits, one strike, waits. I think it's just a fight for Yadong to take. His explosions, like you saw when Arantes fought Josh Emmett, he couldn't stop all those explosive strikes of Emmett because they just break through those singular patterns, right? And they're not fast, like I said, so it's very easy for them to break through, and that's what Yadong has as well. And Arantes doesn't have the best chin, to be honest. He got dropped multiple times against Emmett in the first round. Good recovery, but just gets hit too often. He tries to cover on everything, and they just get around the guard, around those small gloves. And Song Yadong, explosive striker, way better footwork, fast on his feet, big power for a bantamweight especially, good overhand rights like Emmett was catching Arantes with, and he has a pretty good jab as well, Yadong does. So in this fight, I'm going to go Song Yadong. I'm going to go by a second round knockout. Then we go to Li Jingliang versus Daichi Abe, I think is how you pronounce it. Now this could be your fight of the night. Two explosive strikers like to go back and forth, primarily boxers, I guess, if anything. Now, Li Jingliang has a better overall game. He will go for takedowns. He has pretty good wrestling. But the thing about these two guys is, especially for Jingliang, they get hit a lot. And they welcome it sometimes, which could make this fight fun. But it's going to be interesting, especially with their primary weapons. Like 90% of what Jingliang throws is a right cross or a right overhand. And like 90% of what Daichi Abe throws is like a check left hook. So it's the right cross versus the check left hook of Daichi Abe. Abe is pretty good at just getting outside that reach, but sometimes he'll take the shot just to give his left hook, which could be dangerous against a guy like Jingliang who hits as hard as he does. The thing that makes me think maybe Jingliang has this fight is he just has an overall better understanding of the striking and footwork. Daichi Abe is super plodding. He doesn't move anywhere. He kind of just sits in the middle and just waits for you. He's a counter striker, but he will commit himself. But when he commits, he is just desperately throwing those overhands, desperately throwing those right crosses against a guy like Jingliang who can counter. Getting countered by him when you commit like that is going to be a bad night. So I'm going to go with Li Jingliang. He has more weapons. He has the wrestling to fall back on. And I think he just has better footwork and ability to get Abe to commit on him and him countering Abe. I could see Jingliang getting caught as well, but I'm going to go with Jingliang. I'm going to go by a third round knockout. And then we go to the co-main event, Ovince St. Preux versus Tyson Pedro. Now, this is a very interesting fight. Important fight for the light heavyweight division. Tyson Pedro is a prospect everybody's looking at in this division. And Ovince St. Preux, big power, big fighter. Both of these guys are huge, actually, but very unorthodox. I mean, John Jones elaborated on that. He said it's just so hard to fight this guy because what he does is just not what's ordinary to anyone else. If he was never in the UFC, if he was never a professional MMA fighter with this many fights, many coaches would say what he's doing is quote-unquote wrong, but what he's doing is wrong is actually effective in many cases. Like, for an example, he'll throw a jab, switch stances, and throw a jab with that stance, and then throw like an overhand or a right cross, which is with what is now the backhand. But his jabs will be like lingering out there every time he throws it, and his other hand will usually be down. He takes like a sideways stance at times. He's like lunging his body behind his jab. Powerful kicks as well, body kicks. He doesn't set him up too much. He will throw head kicks as well, like you saw against Corey Anderson. And his wrestling is there, but I do not see him trying to take down Tyson Pedro. Although he does have a good Von Flue choke, which should be renamed. He just has good chokes in general, good Kimuras as well. But Tyson Pedro's on a different level on the ground. That's why I believe Pedro has just a knowledge or just a natural ability on the ground. He's just so flexible down there. He's always passing. He's hard to control if you get on top of him. He's always looking to reverse. He is just multi-dimensional on the ground. He's doing everything at once, whereas Ovince St. Preux is just doing one thing at a time. And he's just going to get lost in that kind of dimension of Pedro. Pedro's excellent pressure, especially when he gets on top. Excellent ground and pound, and he's always seeking for the submissions at the same time. And on the feet, he has very good defensive striking. Very good at getting away from shots, countering, very good with long kicks, snap kicks. He's not as dangerous as Ovince St. Preux is, but he's a lot more fundamental and technical on the feet. Good with his jab, he's good with keeping his hands up at all times, even against guys like Ilir Latifi. Couldn't really catch him that cleanly at times because of the way he just slips away. But then again, this is the first time he's fighting a guy this big in Ovince St. Preux. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Tyson Pedro. This is going to be a tough one though. I'm going to go by a decision. I see Tyson Pedro getting the takedown on the overcommitted shots of St. Preux. Then we go to the main event. Donald Cerrone versus Leon Edwards. Now, this is a really fun fight. Both strikers primarily. Donald Cerrone, Muay Thai fighter, has developed a wrestling game late in his career, which is excellent. Especially for a guy like Edwards. Great kicks. His boxing, he's been working on it a lot, you can notice. But it's still kind of a deficiency, especially defensively. He's just easy to hit at times, you know. And this is going to be a tough one, especially the way Leon Edwards throws his punches. Donald Cerrone has excellent kicks, round kicks at every target. Good push kicks, good teeps, good side kicks that he's been developing, like you saw a little bit in the Darren Till fight. And his punches, everything's down the pipe for the most part, but there's not too much leverage in his shots, right? There's some power because of how fast they come out, but there's just not that leverage like you'll see from like a Conor McGregor or even a Leon Edwards over here, which could leave him open sometimes, and he does leave his chin up when he throws punches, which could also be pretty scary here. But the biggest thing here is his wrestling and his BJJ on top. He's by far the better BJJ fighter, and I think even a better wrestler than Edwards is. He has good ground and pound, but he's just very pressuring. He has excellent guard passing. He's not super dangerous until he gets into like your full mount or even side control, or he gets your back. He tries to go from triangles even when he's on top of you in full mount. He gets your back, you're just generally in trouble. Ground and pound and rear naked chokes all day. He doesn't go for the strongman submissions as much, which you'll see him go for triangles a lot. He'll go for omoplatas as well if he gets on the bottom. So anywhere on the ground, he just has a massive advantage over Edwards. And for Edwards, he has pretty good boxing. He's a southpaw fighter, and he commits a lot with 3 strikes. He commits a lot with the jab, the cross, and sometimes the right hook. But it's usually jab cross. 1-2, 1-2, over and over again. You saw that in most of his fights. And being a southpaw fighter, Cerrone can see himself in a very similar predicament like he saw himself in the Nate Diaz fight. Right, Nate Diaz threw the same punches. 1-2, right hook. That's pretty much all he threw. But the thing different here was Diaz was in his head. I don't know how far in his head Edwards is, but I don't think much at all. So that might not be a factor, but Leon Edwards has an explosive left hand. Good footwork as well, where Cerrone's a plotter more than anything. Edwards will move around and try to find his angles, which will set up his ability to get the outside foot advantage pretty easily the way Darren Till did it pretty easily. And the left straight, of course, gets open up on an orthodox fighter, which could be dangerous for Cerrone, especially in the first round. Cerrone's a whole different fighter in the first round than he is in the second and third. He doesn't commit as much, and when you get him past the first and the second, like in the third or fourth or fifth rounds, Cerrone is just dangerous. You saw that in the Matt Brown fight, just a completely different fighter. More comfortable, commits more confident in himself, and he usually figures out opponents pretty well. And Edwards throwing the same punches, if Cerrone can get out of that first round or even out of the second round, Edwards is going to get figured out pretty easily, I think. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Donald Cerrone. This is a tough one, especially the way the first round might go. But I'm going to go with Cerrone. I'm going to go by a 4th round submission. I think the wrestling is going to be a big thing here. I think he's going to be able to seek those under the left hands of Edwards or possibly just set him up himself this time, which you don't normally see. He has pretty good double legs now. He's not the most powerful wrestler. He's not the best wrestler. But when you have that timing down, you don't have to be the most powerful wrestler, right? You just need the timing of getting them off balance, and that's it. You got the takedown. And on top, he's just a whole different animal than Leon Edwards. So those are my predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. For my next video, I'm going to break down one of the fights on the card, so I'll be on the lookout for that. And also, I'm going to come on some of my snippets on my podcast in the next coming hours or so. So be on the lookout for those as well. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.